Okay, so now I will move to IO2 to tell you something about that, about our results. IO2, as I mentioned before, was centered on or revolving around the attempt to define the competences of a good audio describer. Okay, and because those we thought could be the basis from which we could start to create training materials. So once we know what is needed, we can also teach those things to people who want to become audio describers. A few details on IO2. Actually, the IO lasted 7 months. It was led by the University of Trieste, and again, all partners contributed to the output. We had, we'll see it in a second, we had to work a lot on constructing a questionnaire, distributing the questionnaire, and then analyzing data, and so the contribution of all partners was crucial. And again, since the questionnaire was an online questionnaire, we had to rely a lot again on RNIB, who, by the way, is our accessibility manager within the project, and they helped us a lot in making the online questionnaire as accessible as possible to blind users. And I also would like to thank all respondents. Some of them are here, and so thank you very much for taking part in IO2. So aims, as I said, setting out this list. We wanted a list of skills and competences, but the list itself was not enough. We wanted to have an ordered list, a list with all these skills and competences ordered in terms of their relevance according to the respondents to the questionnaire. And we'll see the respondents were 3 very specific sets of respondents, but I'll go to that in a second. This list of the aim was to produce therefore what we called a matrix, a starter kit, to be delivered to our IO3 partners, so that they could start from there to construct the curriculum for the course, basically. IO2 was organized in 3 major phases or stages. The first phase was more of a research phase. We studied in depth results from IO1. We studied audio description in general. We also studied a lot about audio description and didactics, but also studies on empirical research were very important to us, as well as studies on how to develop a questionnaire, because the questionnaire and the preparation of the questionnaire was actually the core activity of IO2. It took us a very long time, and everything revolved around the construction of this questionnaire. The questionnaire was targeted at 3 very specific audiences. We decided we needed the perspective of audio describers, of AD providers, and also of users, in order to get what we needed for the construction of this curriculum. And so once we prepared the questionnaire, we moved to phase number 2, which is this one. That is when we distributed the questionnaire. We released the questionnaire online. We left it online for around a month and a half, and we obtained a lot of responses, especially at the very beginning of that period, and then fewer towards the end of the period. We gathered all the findings, collated them, analyzed them, and this enabled us to move to phase number 3, which was discussing between partners what we got, writing the report, which will be right away online very soon in the next few weeks. It will be online after the report will be also evaluated by the advisory board and validated by one of our partners, in particular by you. And phase 3 also involves dissemination, and we are now disseminating our results. We will keep on doing so during conferences and plan to publish in journals. The reason why we need to do that is because at the moment the report is very, very long, it's very, very diluted. We got so many results that they need to be more structured, and publications will focus on different aspects of the results, because, as I said, there were too many, and in fact I had to select so much for today. And let's see if I can tell you something interesting. Well, about the distribution of the questionnaire, as I mentioned, we distributed it only online. We used the web survey creator platform, which was very useful and enabled us to exploit the fact that they could produce an accessible questionnaire. We needed help from our NIB, we needed to test the accessibility of the questionnaire, and for this I have also to thank our students, our blind students at UNITS, the University of Trieste, for the piloting phases. But then we managed to upload everything and to make it accessible. The questionnaire was available. It was drafted in English so that all partners could discuss it and revise it, but then it was translated into all the languages of the project, so it was 6 languages. It was distributed worldwide in a way, so that has been very useful for us, but the languages were only 6 available. So, and then it was distributed so that people could answer anonymously after consenting to do so, and to give us and to enable us to use data for our research purposes. I hope it's feasible. Yes, the questionnaire was very long. It was very structured, and it comprised a general section, so all respondents had to go through that, read an introduction to the questionnaire, but also fill in their demographic data, which were important to us. And then, as I mentioned, we had 3 target respondents in mind, and so we created 3 different sections of this questionnaire. And so audio describers were required to just answer those questions, users had another set of questions, and providers had another set of questions. The thing is that the questions in each part of the questionnaire were very similar, because we wanted the perspective of different people on the same issues. And so we just structured it differently, but what we wanted to get was very similar, and so the questions were very similar. In terms of respondents, we obtained 183 responses, so very many people completed the online questionnaire. As you can see the distribution of these people, and I have to say we are very happy to notice that a lot of users were involved in giving us feedback. 100 people, it's more than half of our complete sample. And so they have been very useful, and this denotes their interest probably in giving us feedback that can ameliorate in a way audio description, so that audio descriptions that they will get in the future might be a bit better than they are today. Responses we got came from 26 countries, 5 of which are non-European countries, and the most represented countries in terms of respondents were Italy, the UK, Spain, followed by Slovenia and Poland, and then a lot of other countries that I'm not going to list. But so we got responses from everywhere in a way. In terms of the respondents' profile, and I'm here referring to the whole sample, not to the single categories, as a sample that is actually quite balanced in terms of gender. We've got half and a half actually, and also in terms of age. As you can see, most age ranges are represented apart from the older adults, but we could expect that, so we do not have very old people responding. And in terms of sight condition, again, we have a very balanced sample, because half was made up of roughly totally blind people and half was made of fully sighted people, and then we've got a very small slice of partially sighted respondents. And then this is a fact, but this is probably also a limitation of our study. The respondents were all educated, so there is no one who had no schooling at all or just went to primary school. So the medium level of education was quite high overall, and therefore the responses we got might have been influenced in a way by the sample we reached out. Okay, and selected results. Okay, as I said, we, with the questionnaire, focused on the required skills and competences needed to train professional audio describers, and we asked these people what are the most important skills and competences according to them, in order for us to see what are the most relevant according to professionals and what are the most relevant according to users. Questions, very specific questions on skills and competences, were included in those parts of the questionnaire. As you can see, the questionnaire is much more structured, because we also wanted to know other things especially about audio describers, where they come from, what is their sociological reality in a way, what was their educational background. But now, today, I will just stick to those sections of the questionnaire, because those are the ones that interest us the most. And what we have, just a second, those sections of the questionnaire included questions categorized by categories, and so we basically asked questions regarding soft skills. That's a sample of our questions to respondents. How important are the following: soft skills, theoretical knowledge, textual and linguistic skills, so on and so forth, on a scale from 1 to 5, where 1 typically was not important at all and 5 extremely important. So all the list of skills and competencies was categorized into soft skills. There we had 11 items. Soft skills, as Ivona and Agnieszka mentioned, are basically non-teachable skills, or skills that are not directly related to a specific topic, in this case to audio description. So there we listed things such as solving problems or working in a team, so on and so forth. So as I said, 11 items. Then we had this theoretical knowledge category. We had 9 items here, including, for instance, AD principles about the target group, language and linguistics, so we wanted to know what kind of theoretical knowledge, according to these people, was important to become an audio describer. A third category included 10 items regarding textual and linguistic skills, so things like express meaning succinctly or selecting significant visual information, so on and so forth. Then we had this technical skills category that included, for instance, AD voicing or AD recording. And to conclude, we listed 28 items that, according to literature, according to us, could represent the most difficult aspects of the audio description process. So people had to answer and tick their box regarding all these aspects. And again, both audio describers and service providers rated the same, exactly the same list of items. Something very similar happened for users. We had this section, the user satisfaction section, that included kind of the same questions, but reformulated and made a bit more simple. But again, we had 5 categories inquiring about what users appreciate the most or dislike the most. But again, in terms of language and narrative, quality of the information delivered, language and style, technical aspects, and textual aspects. Okay? So what happened is that we got all the data, and then we decided to merge and combine the rankings of, well, actually not all of all respondents, but divided into 2 major categories: professionals and users, basically. Okay, so that we could have the 2 perspectives. And that enabled us to create what we call this matrix, which is a list of priorities according to the 2 categories of people, ordered by a degree of relevance. And here I just wanted to show you a couple of samples of this matrix, how it is organized and how we are going to use it. And basically well, this is a sample of the first matrix, the one including skills, the most important, the most relevant skills and competencies according to the professionals. You can see the competencies listed on the left. You can see an index which we made up, summing the rankings of all the professionals. And then you can see the type of competence we are talking about. All in all, we've got around 60-something, a list of 62, 64 items. Here you can see just a few of them. And what can be relevant to mention is that, well, the top 3 competencies considered essential by professionals are basically linguistic and textual competencies. As you can see, for them it is very important to know how to select significant visual information, to know their mother tongue very well, and also to express meaning succinctly. So this goes along with what literature says, and also with what we read in guidelines typically. But knowing that in general, professionals find it very important to acquire textual and linguistic skills will guide us in providing them this type of training, specific training on textual and linguistic skills. as I said, you can see just a very small part of the matrix, but if you have a look at it all, and you can do that when you download, if you wish, the report, you can notice that at the very top of the matrix we've got textual and linguistic skills, followed by soft skills, which, as I said, are difficult to teach or might even be considered a prerequisite for people who start to study for this profession. Why is it so? I thought about that, and from what we got in terms of data from the questionnaire, we noticed that basically most audio describers, or at least the ones we reached out to, already know theory well enough. They all know that guidelines exist, national, in-house, international guidelines. They study them, they use them when they work. And so they feel they do already have the necessary theoretical knowledge to be audio describers, but they feel the need to be trained in terms of language and linguistics. This is something that seems to emerge from this data. Besides having studied guidelines and some theory, as also IO1 illustrated, audio describers told us through the questionnaire that they like very much to improve their skills by, for instance, studying themselves, doing research themselves, or going to conferences and talking to other people about audio description, or to listen to theory about audio description. So I think that's one of the reasons why we do not have theoretical knowledge at the top of the list of priorities, but we have textual and linguistic skills. Even though these people typically come from realms where language is a core aspect. Most of the describers that answer the questionnaire, for instance, come from the audiovisual translation field, or from the field of film studies, for instance. Some of them are journalists, and so they come from fields where language is used a lot, but still they feel the need that they need to know more about language. This is a very, very short overview on the perspective of the professionals. What about the user perspective? Again, this is just a very small bit of the matrix, which is again very long and includes around 60 something, over 60 items. As you can notice from here, the most appreciated aspects of audio description again have to do with language, especially with a simple language, simple syntax. And this tells us that we need to teach audio describers to be, yes, succinct, to be vivid as they required, but to be selective in the right way when they produce their audio descriptions. But they also have to learn how to use language in a simple way, because simple language, simple syntax is what most users seem to want. Besides that, there's another aspect that emerges, especially from this top list of priorities according to users. The technical aspects of audio descriptions are very important, especially synchronization, and as you can read from there, users do not really like when audio description overlaps with dialogues. And so these are aspects that we think need to be taught, or perhaps at least pointed out, because audio describers who often also voice their descriptions must know and have very, very clear in their mind. Overall, however, and I'm concluding, users gave a very interesting feedback, but all in all they said they like the audio descriptions they are exposed to in their countries. they like them. What they do not like is that there are not very many, and so their hope for the future is to have more audio descriptions in their countries. And our hope is to produce these materials, and thanks to the materials, to produce more audio describers that can produce more audio descriptions for end users. So that's all. It's nothing compared to what we actually found out, but I hope that you can soon read the report and browse through it and focus on the aspects that you are more interested in. And I'm done. Thank you very much.